like the council to take a look at the agenda, and if there is any additions or deletions, you can recommend those at this time.
I'd like to add the Oakwood project to the agenda.
We do have a committee for the Oakwood project that I would rather you talk with them maybe after, who's all here from the Oakwood project? We have Ernie Stumbo and Paul Lowry and Fred Spanier.
I'd still like that. I'd still like to add it myself because I have some questions too.
We'll talk about that after the meeting. We're not adding that to the agenda due to the fact we have a committee that we need to get together with, okay?
Alex, we're trying to add this to the agenda and we're not being allowed to.
Okay, so if it's going to be official, sorry about that. See that? Can I fix it? So if you're going to add official business to the record, then you just have to make a motion to add it to the agenda. That's what you need to do. So,
Didn't we just do that?
well, you got to take a vote on it. So just put it on there.
I make the motion.
I second it.
And you guys just want to do it, so you want to add just the topic of Oakwood?
Topic Oakwood.
Fair enough.
That's one thing.
Okay.
And Alex, you know more about this than we do. You've done this longer than I have. There's other things that we want to talk about too, but is everything that we specifically want to talk about need to be put on the agenda, or is there like time for questions and answers later on, like at the end when the mayor asks the people that are attendees if they have anything to say? Do they need to put something on the agenda to talk about, or is it like at the end when they ask if there's anything to say? Are we allowed to ask any questions too?
Well, typically your caucus meeting is for you all, right? Is to have a discussion amongst each other and
Awesome.
and to try to understand the issues that are going to be formally adopted and voted on. That's why you guys are meeting. So if there's an issue that you guys have and you want to discuss it in open forum, you can certainly do it.
So everything that we want to talk about has to be brought up right now for the agenda, or is there a time like we just start talking?
So the agenda is for purposes, of course, to allow people in the community to understand what you're going to be discussing and talking about. And a lot of people have a hard time when you start adding things onto an agenda that aren't discussed publicly, or that aren't aforementioned for the obvious reasons. But the most important thing is that there has to be some structure to the meeting, which is why the mayor is putting together an agenda so that you can stay on topic, so you don't go off topic and start talking about things that no one's prepared for as in discussions. I mean, there's always public comment, at least from the council standpoint, that can bring up things and talk about it.
Well, let me give an example and you tell me how I should handle this. Like, for some strange reason, I wanted to ask at this caucus meeting, what happened to the walnut tree that was behind the Worthington Trailer Park Court that got cut down a couple weeks ago when we all said that we wanted to keep as many trees as we wanted to? And if that walnut tree was over 50-something years old, and now there's a stump sticking up about 4 or 5 feet. Now, if I wanted to talk about why that got cut down or who cut that down, would I say I want to add that onto the agenda? Or would that be a question like towards the end, like, does anybody have any other questions that we haven't covered?
Or if you want to add it to the agenda for the meeting next week, and if there's people that know about why a tree was cut down, I mean, it's up to you.
So when do you add things to the agenda for next week? At the end of the meeting, or during the meeting, or
Well,
at the beginning of this caucus meeting?
you would, the caucus is designed primarily, again, feedback on the topics that people are presenting, putting forward. It's to give notice to the public, hey, we're talking about these things in earnest. I mean, I would hate to see caucuses, from the council standpoint, even representation, for items that nobody knows about. And that's when people get upset. You're talking about things that are brought up at last minute without the public having the opportunity to weigh in. Because in theory, the public has looked at the items in the agenda and know what you're supposed to be discussing and talking about.
So who's the person that writes this agenda and it's period, that's it? When do council people get any input on putting what they want to talk about on the agenda before it's printed out?
You can,
Email?
Each of the council members can always add things that they want to talk to about, put on the agenda.
Okay.
Each should have.
Does each council member have my email account,
I
email
don't,
address?
I don't do email.
Okay.
That's why I come up here to get all my council packets and everything printed out.
Last Thursday or Friday, I emailed you to put Oakwood on.
You just said Oakwood, you didn't say what it was about, so you should have got
I
an
still
email
didn't-
back.
I did, and I
That
still
said,
didn't.
talk to the committee.
I presented Oakwood here the exact same way I presented it on email. Didn't say what I want to talk about, just Oakwood in general.
I don't have a problem with that, but here's where we're at. We do want to stay on a time schedule.
I
So,
understand that.
for the public, for ourselves. So if you want to drag it out till 12 o'clock, I'm gonna say no to everything that everybody wants to talk about, but in a timely fashion, we can, I think, get through the night. Okay, so we got Oakwood and 208 project, for the property.
And, are we, once somebody makes a motion on something, Alex, he made a motion, I seconded, do we need to go down and vote to see if we can add this to the agenda? How does this work?
So the mayor is the presiding officer. The mayor's job is to conduct this, right? Is to help arrange for an orderly distribution of not only how you want to handle a meeting, but more importantly, how and what issues need to be put on the agenda. You guys, if there is a majority of the people here really want to see issues talked about on caucus, it just would make sense in the future to make sure people are aware of the items so that the public has an ability to weigh in, if that's the concern. So I mean, we have a meeting next week, I believe it's 7 o'clock on Tuesday. If you want to add things to the agenda, you can certainly do it. If it's something that's time urgent, needs to be done and discussed tonight, you can't take any action on it anyway tonight. It's just information purposes. So.
Well, that sounds like that would be the best time to talk, when it's just information purposes, when we can't vote on anything.
Depends on how you look at it.
And then if we get enough response from our conversation tonight, and we get feedback from residents that, yeah, they want to talk about this, then we make sure we get that put on the agenda next month.
If you would be specific when you send an email of why you're wanting that on there, if there's a particular question or addition, please put that in the email so we can address that.
And also, I'd like to talk about recycle bins for Crittenden. And so we could get so we can get computers to the city, which they say that we need. I'd like to talk about computers. I don't know if that would be budget questions or not.
That'd be fine. Anyone else?
Is that budget questions, Mayor? Talking about the computers?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Did you say we don't talk?
Anything else?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I have a motion to approve the agenda at this time. I
I'll
would
make a
not,
motion.
before we do, please forgive me, can we move up Joe Montgomery to the top of the list? He has a young son at home he needs to get back to. So Joe, we'll get you up there. Give us just a moment, okay?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we don't have to make a motion
All
on
right,
this.
whatever.
Okay, thank you, Paula. All right, Joe, you want to come on up and
Yeah,
explain
thank
to us a little bit?
Okay,
Nice to meet you. Joe Montgomery. What I'm passing out here, hi, Joe Montgomery, is just the honor banner agreement. Right there. It's super tight legal document, Mr. Edmondson. Might want to slice and dice. It's slightly, do you want me over here? More than a handshake. So, some of you know me, some of you don't know me. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Patton and the council for having me here tonight. Hopefully most of you are familiar with Operation Honor by now. We're a small 501c3 nonprofit that has kind of come into Grant County in the last 6-8 months and really been embraced by the community. The original thing that kind of brought us over here, that kind of kick-started everything that we want to do in Grant County, is the Honor Banner program. So, has everyone here on council had the opportunity to maybe drive through Williamstown and see those banners? And I want to tell you, Williamstown did by far the nicest job of putting those things up. We redesigned them. They're a little bit different than what you might see in Owen County or Independence or Carrollton, or, you know, we're in Gallatin County. So we have them spread out through a lot of the counties in northern Kentucky. So the idea behind it is I already met with Dry Ridge, and they've approved it, and now we'd like to, you know, present the program officially to Crittenden. I was supposed to be here a month ago. Apologies, that 11-year-old aforementioned that she mentioned kind of helped me up from getting to the last meeting. But basically, what you have in front of you is the agreement, and it is a community enhancement recognition program for not only veterans active duty, it's for law enforcement, first responders. They're the tough ones to get up on the pole. They don't like their pictures on the pole. But and it's a really simple, cut, dry. Just we have everything on our website. People sponsor the banners. We collect all the information. We collect the pictures. We proof them. We print them. We provide you with the brackets. The city's real only responsibility, other than adopting the program and moving forward, is that you're responsible for hanging them and taking them down. You know, generally speaking now, this Williamstown is up before Memorial Day, down right after Veterans Day. That part is all really, if you want to do it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, they're doing it for 3 years. That's how most people do it. Put them up, take them down. And then after the fact, we give the banners to the families that sponsor them. So you don't have to live in Crittenden. The veteran or the first responder or law enforcement might not have ever been in Kentucky. But if they're a loved one and maybe a grandpa that lives somewhere, an uncle, and you want to honor them in the community. So we've got it set up so that it's Grant County salutes. And we now have it set up that they can identify if they want to have it in Williamstown, Dry Ridge, or Crittenden. And that would be the process. So there's nothing more to it than that. You've seen the banners. They look great. You know, if you have any questions, obviously you can, you know, I just now provided you with this agreement. We can tweak that, but this is the general one we use.
Joe, could you explain the cost and how many do you have to have in order to do this project?
Well, and you and I talked about this in the beginning when we thought about maybe trying to get it in last year. It just wasn't enough time. You can have one. Now, quite frankly, that might look a little odd, silly. I don't think you'll get one. The more the merrier. You know, I think we've had people already express interest about getting this in Crittenden, so you just have to identify the poles they'll go on and where they'll go. And you know, some people, you know, Falmouth is doing it, and I don't know how many they'll get, but you know, they thought about hanging one on one side and a flag on the other side. Williamstown obviously put flowers underneath, and I don't know if you saw the kind of flaggish banner that's hanging next to some. I had no idea. I don't even know where they got those. That was something that they did. So there's no, you know, there's no mins, no anything. When we started in Williamstown, our commitment was to grow out Williamstown and then expand it through Grant County. But as Dry Ridge got, you know, saw it and wanted it, and Crittenden now hopefully, then, you know, they really didn't hold my feet to the fire on that. They just said, hey, let's just, Operation Honor as a whole, we've developed and we've already met with a lot of community leaders, and we just have this vision that we're going to try to create over the next year to two for Grant County. It's a whole veteran-centric, just get the whole community. I don't think there's a cause more so than supporting veterans that you're going to find most people to get behind. So, okay, got that question. Sir?
What's your website, sir?
OperationHonor.org. And if you go there and just go under Honor Banners, you'll see all the information. It's $149 to sponsor the banner. That's a 2 foot by 4 foot, two-sided, full color. We provide the brackets. So depending on the price of the bracket and the printing jumps or not, there's usually about a $20 bill in there. I don't take into consideration time going and getting banners and dropping them off and all that. It does come back to Operation Honor, but there is some money in there for a fundraiser for us, but it's not anything that's
So the money's paid directly to Operation
It goes to
Honor?
Operation Honor.
We don't pay it, the city doesn't handle it?
Nope, nope, that's what most communities love, there's no transactions within the city, nobody's giving money to the city and expecting something, it's sponsored and ran by Operation Honor, and as you see in the agreement, the city disagrees. And we ran into it in Alexandria, but it's the only time we ran into it. The Duke had some of the poles, which I don't know if you can have Duke down here, but they kind of threw it, they had to try to jump through some hoops to get Duke to approve to put it on the poles. I haven't had any problems.
If somebody can't afford the 149, will you take partial where it has to be 149? You can't take donation, then add up all the donations and then see how many you can buy?
Well, so that would be something that we wouldn't want to manage. We had this come up in Falmouth. Right off the rip, as soon as we announced it, somebody says, I can't afford it for Grandpa, and he's such a great guy, and, you know, and if we could, we'd buy banners and put them up for every veteran in all of Grant County. I would hesitate for y'all on city council to get involved, engage in that, maybe make some suggestions, you know, maybe Stormy at the American Legion, or maybe some of the veterans groups might, but my personal opinion is you raise money for one person, and then somebody's gonna raise their hand and say, why didn't you raise money for me? That's my personal opinion from a business perspective as a nonprofit, but we can't really get into the, you know, reduced rates and all that stuff. It's just, but I understand that question, it's come up before, and it's you know, $149 is a lot of money, it's a 3-year program, it's over 3 years, so when you spread it out, it's not so much. But
I have a question,
yes,
and as soon as he moves, I'll sign in. I know you said that we're responsible, the city of Crittenden's responsible for putting them up and taking them down. I was told that there's a special way that they have to be stored, and what is that way, and who's responsible for storing them and where?
So I don't know if you have a maintenance department, I'm not all that familiar with the city of Crittenden and how that looks, but they're 2 foot by 4 foot, and you could literally lay them flat on the top of those file cabinets and let them sit there for 6 months. You know, they're obviously they have the picture of the veteran. It's not an American flag, which of course you know we treat differently, but you know, not wet and not damp, and I mean literally you can sit on the floor in a corner of the office as long as nobody's standing, just flat. You know, you roll them up, they tend to kind of want to, because they're two-sided, so they could literally sit on top of those cabinets right there when they take them down and bring them back, and then it's just a matter of it's really not rocket science. It's just you know, I'm not worried about that. It's you put the brackets up, you probably just pull the poles down, and we've worked with enough communities that we really know any problems with that. I mean, if push came to shove, and you really literally didn't have a space to put them, I mean, I'm sure we could find flat space.
Do brackets come down with the banner, or do brackets stay up?
So
if you
brackets
take
are
the
attached to the
banner
pole, the actual aluminum, you know, brackets that won't rust and all that. It has a, what do you call it? No, they're poles, but I can't think of the name. They bend, they don't break, but.
L bracket?
No, it's just a, huh?
Hinge?
No, it's a type of plastic that won't break, so they won't bust on you. Because the wind kind of treats it like a sail. So usually you just pull the pin, pull that out, take the banner down, keep your poles, and when you're ready to go back up, you slide the poles in them, stick it right back in the brackets. You don't have to realign the brackets. They strap the brackets to the pole, you're done. And,
So the actual bracket stays on the pole?
you can, I mean, you don't have to. You can take them down if you want, but that'd be a lot of work. Yeah, there's no real, like I said, each city does it a hair different, but, you know, we make recommendations. That's kind of up to the city. And of course, part of the agreement is that council and members and everything, you're not responsible for, you know, wear and tear. God forbid somebody vandalizes one, which I can't imagine, but, you know, no liability. Any questions?
Joe, I've got a question. The city's responsible for obtaining approval from the utility companies associated with the pole. Have you have those cities that have already demonstrated the ability to hang the banners, have they already received the approval from utility companies?
I would say that most of them never asked, but if you're dealing with Owen Electric or, what's the other electric? Duke is the only one. Do you have Duke poles here in town?
Yes.
Might be an issue.
They're all the.
Alex, when I was on council, we signed an agreement with Duke and made them pull that agreement, and it was in that agreement that we reserved the right as city at that time to hang banners. There's even outlets on some of the poles to illuminate Christmas decorations, whatever. That was in the long-term agreement that we signed when I was on council.
I can't confirm, I can't confirm, I think the Alexandria had a little something going on behind the scenes with a few folks. They never ended up doing it, they wanted to try to do it themselves, and they quickly figured out to create a website to do that, and collect money, and how to do all that was a nightmare. I haven't, I mean, most communities hang, do y'all hang holiday stuff now? You hang up anything on poles at all ever? I mean, most communities do that. But if there were to be, legally, if there were to be,
Yeah, that's the concern I have, is getting consent in time to be able to, this looks like it's from May of next year, is when you start, right?
yeah.
So
I was trying to get somebody's name and number at Duke, that was just a mess. But if, you know, like Roger said, if there's an existing agreement, then that would be something that might be. I don't think they really had a problem with it.
Yeah, the only hesitancy would be, wouldn't want the city to be in a situation
That's
where
right.
they can't comply, and you've got these banners created, and everyone's
That
upset.
would be a problem, so that's why it's, you know, prior to throwing that out there, we should probably figure that out, and, I would be shocked if that is actual, you know, a reality.
And I'm assuming the last line, the first offering of Operation Honor Owen County banners will be hung starting May 2019. Should that be May of 2019?
Does that say 2019?
When I do, when I have,
Yeah. It's, oh, wow.
at the bottom.
It's just a typo.
But I
Okay.
mean, the goal would be
Yeah.
to have everything hung by 2020.
Yes, sir, I can change it.
That's okay, I was just curious. And I'm assuming that their operation.
This was printed off with expediency. And this is just a basic, you can change this any way you want. You know, we don't make it super legal, it's an agreement, if you want to out, so you want to put something in there, that some indemnification clause, or, we don't really.
Everything looks good, it's just, I just want to make sure you can get consent from utility companies, because a lot of utility companies, if it obstructs view and somebody's hit,
Yeah.
I've seen a lawsuit where that exact issue happened, the utility company said you never had permission to put it on there, the city wound up absorbing the entire loss, what a joke. And it just back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you'll have 100 of them, if you got 20, that'd be a good start for this size community. And, again, we make some recommendations depending on which poles you wanna hang them on, we would suggest probably just hanging them to the inside. You know, or it depends on, like, in Williamstown, they have that parking area, so there aren't big semi-trucks and stuff coming through there.
That's my concern, and I talked to JD about our maintenance supervisor, because he says, because I want to fly on every pole, you know, Veterans Day or whatever, he said some of the big trucks that come through, tear them off, and that's my concern with this, so.
You put them on the inside, or as the road goes, you can just run them parallel.
It's a good idea.
Huh?
That was what I was, that's what I
Yeah.
meant.
Yeah, it's not, it's just, yeah, each city's gonna be different, each community, I mean, Owen County, crap, we got poles down in front of the firehouse, it seemed like they're a mile off the road, but you can't see them, you know?
Well, putting them parallel, wouldn't that be hard to see that way?
I mean, if you're coming and going, or if you're on the sidewalk, you know, you would see them as you're passing. Yeah, I mean, it depends on,
You could also put them on the inside, instead of having them on the outside of the pole on traffic. You
Right.
could have them on this way where you still see them, and that 18-wheeler's gonna have to take the pole out before they take the
Right.
flag out.
The inside, I think, would be better than parallel.
Mhm. I agree.
How long does it usually take, like Williamstown, to put theirs up? Do they get it done in a day, or does it
yeah.
take them just a day? So it's not a whole lot of time.
The way we did it was you just cut a piece of PVC pipe, you know, once brackets are up, it's done. You know, cordless screwdriver, I put them up and down, I've done it a couple times, it helped, but, just put that PVC up there, and put the top bracket on, throw the old ring. Or put the top one on, whatever height you want, put that up, strap, it's just like a hose clamp, 2 hose clamps that hold it to the pole, so. But we would love to see, you know, like you say, Mayor, 500 banners all throughout Grant County. It's really part of our bigger picture that we're trying to paint for, y'all ever driving to North Carolina, that first sign to see is we're the most veteran-friendly state in the nation. Well, we're thinking about trying that with, when you're right coming up down 75, Grant County, the most veteran-friendly county, and that'd be fun.
I like it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Sheriff? We'll talk to your wife. You'll be the first one. Anything else?
Thank you, Jeff.
All right.
Appreciate
Good to
it.
see you.
much. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Next on the agenda, we have the ordinances that, everybody get an ordinance email from Attorney Alex.
Did that go through? Did everybody receive one?
Did you have time to look over them and see if there's any changes? Yes, is everybody signed in that's wanting to speak tonight?
I would like, if this is the appropriate time, I'd like to make 2 recommendations on the nuisance code. And first of all, Alex, robust, complete job on all
Oh, no.
of them. Really good. But
When I
like,
read it, I figure out.
like anytime you read something, it stimulates some thoughts. So it stimulated a couple.
In preparation for discussing the nuisance code, I drove around a couple of the neighborhoods that I visited back in Wanda. I mean, I took a few pictures and there were cars parked on the sidewalks, and it just is like everywhere. I mean, like everywhere you look, rather than pulling into the driveway, they just park in the front yard. And I'm like, wow. I mean, so those are the discussions hopefully you guys we can have those tonight and really shed some light on what you'd like to see happen to get this thing enacted.
Or is it okay for me to throw a couple out? Well, for consideration, and this is something I talked to Wanda about, it's construction debris. Imagine new construction or a major remodeling or something like that going on where due to the construction activity, gravel, sand, soil, metal shavings, sheet metal, screws, nails, rebar, wood shavings, or whatever, make it into the street. Okay, now it's a public problem. And in some of these neighborhoods, it stays there for a long time. You have a big rain, you got runoff. Now it goes into the public storm sewers, and the city's got a problem to clean that up. So I would like to include some language in here about construction debris that remains in the street for an extended period that could be subject to runoff that goes into public storm sewers.
What about storing the construction debris on property? Is that a concern?
It can be, especially if it's windy and they haven't put balusters around the property where there's runoff. In most cases, what I've seen in the neighborhoods, they are putting barriers up around the perimeter, but the street side's open, and that's where it becomes a big deal. And it becomes a big deal, especially for motorcycle riders, because I have a friend who recently had an accident because of new construction activities and big load of mulch. Mulch is in the street, and mulch is wet, and he went down, and same thing as grass clippings. So in general, construction debris, nails, shavings, rebar, all that, I can shoot you a paragraph if you would like, and if the council agrees that that's a good idea, I would like it included. I didn't know the right place to put it. I chose page 15 at the end of that section.
So in council, my question would be also, you're defining new construction. Tell
Or
me-
major remodeling,
Right, there you go. Tell me about the homeowner that's been working on his improvement for 7 years.
yeah. If it makes its way into the street, I've got an issue. That's my,
So you
my
want to see it
concern.
sealed off within the perimeter of their boundaries, making sure that it can't, okay. I'll find something to direct.
So that was the most difficult one. The next one I think is easy. On section S, page I guess it's beginning of page 14, it talks about fires. And it specifically calls out no more than 6 square feet in area. And I would like to suggest we increase that to 12. Why did I choose 12? If you buy a commercial fire pit or something like that from Home Depot or Lowe's, most of those are 4 feet in diameter. That's 12.5 square feet, so I'd like to go from 6 to 12. I'd hate for somebody to invest $400 or $500 in a fire pit and they can't use it because you've only got 6 square feet of area that's legal.
Joe, where was that?
Item number S on page 14. Oh, page 13, I'm sorry. Item S, see the 6? I just want to make it 12.
Easy enough, sure.
That's it for me.
I gave you guys a tag along with some suggested, they're not incorporated into the nuisance code yet, but it's the tree house, addressing the sheds, the garage. Todd, it's got your question about parking on prohibited parking. Feel free to interject and tell me what you guys think about that too. Do we want to embed that in or not? That's the sheds, the tree houses, the general debris language. And those are kind of the controversial ones. If you look at the general debris language, you'll see any motor vehicle that's in disrepair. I mean, those are the ones that are going to be hot topics that come before the board.
I did have a question on page 2 of your 2-page. Any motor vehicle which is inoperable or not currently licensed or generally is not being driven. So say I have 3 cars, I have 2 drivers, and 1 car sits in the driveway 99% of the time. Would that fall into the category of generally not being driven?
It's really, you look at that sentence and it's total. So you got to first get to, is it inoperable first? Next, is it not currently licensed to? And then you get to the third, generally not being driven. So it's a companion sentence that requires all 3 of those to be present.
But it requires all 3?
Yes. So if you just have a car that's not driven because it's your 3rd or 4th car, it's not going to apply. Because it is probably licensed and it probably is operable. It's just you have to reach all 3 of those criteria.
I have a neighbor at this time that has a car that's inoperable, but she and I discussed it, and there's a lien on the car through the bank. She can't get rid of it. What do we do about something like that?
It's quite a problem. Yes, it's quite a problem.
Another question about that.
She wants to give it back to the bank, the bank doesn't want it back.
Bank doesn't want it back, so she's stuck with it. She can't salvage it or anything. It's just sitting there.
Where's the bank?
I didn't ask that, Danny.
Tow it to the park.
That's exactly the advice I give my clients. You pick it up, you have them towed, and you put it in their, on their front yard, and you put it in the banks, right there, they'll get rid of it at that point. They just don't want to pay the expense to come tow it out.